What I would like to do, though, before we get into any major discussion, is quickly explain, I suppose, who I am. My name is Hannes McNulty. I'm from the Green Industry Platform, and I'll be looking after you during this particular workshop, also presenting on IGO that you might have seen in the agenda. I have here with me some colleagues from the Islands team, and this is Melanie Ashton and Cohen Lee. And we also have Jesse Ojobor from Nigeria, who is going to be presenting on resource efficiency. So to get things started, I would like to hand over to Melanie to give a quick introduction to the Islands program and how it connects with IGO and where this training workshop came out of. Melanie, over to you.
Thanks very much, Hannes. Good afternoon and evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all here today to the IGO for Islands training workshop for SME stakeholders in SIDS. This marks our first collaboration between Jeff Islands and the Green Industry Platform's IGO initiative. So I'll tell you a little bit about Islands, our program, first. The Global Environment Facility implementing sustainable low and non-chemical development in small island developing states, Jeff Islands, program supports 33 SIDS across the Atlantic, Caribbean, Indian, and Pacific Ocean to safely and sustainably manage chemical and hazardous waste. We connect and facilitate SIDS to SIDS learning across and between project regions, including through dedicated communities of practice on the Green Forum and jeffislands.org, our knowledge management platform. And as part of our approach to SIDS learning, over the next 5 years, Jeff Islands is hosting webinars and training workshops on key issues that SIDS are facing in managing chemicals and waste. And in these sessions, we aim to bring you insight, shared experience, and knowledge on how SIDS can progress low and non-chemical development pathways. We hope that these sessions will assist in identifying opportunities for SIDS and provide a space to share best practices and solutions. We're excited to have the opportunity to bring the SIDS communities together through the medium and look forward to an animated discussion with you all today. And today, we're so pleased to be working with the Green Industry Platform to bring you this training workshop. The IGO initiative provides a support system for SMEs, which they can embed greater resource efficiency throughout their business practices. The IGO initiative's overarching approach to resource efficiency encompassing energy, water, chemicals, waste, and materials, supported by its systematic support structure, from technical information provision to implementation of tailored recommendations, will assist SMEs across SIDS to reduce the generation of hazardous waste and more efficiently use chemicals in an environmentally sound manner, all while reducing cost and increasing productivity in the use of other resources. The collaboration is primarily motivated by the potential synergies we recognize from the two programs and their overlapping objectives. For example, by the inherent interdependency between resources. For instance, enhancing energy efficiency can reduce emissions, eventually curbing the generation of used oil from fossil fuel combustion. Enhancing material efficiency can reduce the use of raw materials, prompting increase of product lifetime, as well as recycling and reuse of materials, leading to an overall decline in waste streams such as end-of-life vehicles and e-waste, which Islands addresses. And so, with that brief overview, I'm very pleased to introduce today's training workshop, IGO for Islands, for SME stakeholders in SIDS, and to welcome new members of the Islands family here today. We're very happy to see many registrations for business associations across SIDS in the Pacific and the Caribbean. We hope the training workshop is informative, generative, and useful to your operations. So thank you again for attending. We're very grateful for your continued interest and ongoing support. And with that, I hand you back to Hannes, our moderator and chair of this session. You're in very good hands. Thanks, Hannes.
Thank you very much, Melanie. And with that, we can pretty much jump into our training workshop. Again, just to remind you very quickly of the agenda. To begin with, we will very soon have Jesse give an introduction to resource efficiency, knowing that this is potentially something you've heard about, but may not know a lot about. Jesse's going to give quite a good overview to all of you about resource efficiency. Then following that, I will give you an in-depth introduction to what's called the IGO Assistant. And the IGO Assistant is really a tool to help SMEs, one, understand their resource efficiency status, the way it is today, and also then how to progress, how to access what they need to start making changes in their operations, regardless what sector they're in. And then we will have a Q&A session. We really want to hear from you of what you think about resource efficiency. If you think what we're proposing here today and talking about is of interest to you, can you make use of it? And in general, to get feedback from you. And of course, ask all the questions you want if you want to learn a bit more about resource efficiency, or how we can maybe bring more supports to you or your SME members. Now, today we have probably quite a mix of attendees, ranging from government to business sectors and even also probably some SMEs. So this is actually great to get a lot of different perspectives into the Q&A. So really looking forward to hearing from all of you during that discussion. But let me stop talking about a topic we haven't introduced properly yet. And so with that, I would like to hand over to Jesse to give a good solid introduction to resource efficiency and clarify how amazing it is for all different types of SMEs. Over to you, Jesse.
Thank you, Hannes. It's a great pleasure being here with you today. My name is Jesse Ojobo. I'm a resource efficiency and cleanup production expert based in Vienna and also in Nigeria. And today is going to be a great day because this will be an exciting moment for us to share our experience, one on resource efficiency and cleanup production, and also to see how we can apply it across many sectors within the SIDS. So, here we go. So, can you see my slides? Okay, great. So, as we all know, the small islands developing states, particularly called the SIDS, has a very emerging, I would say, an interesting economy sector, private sector-led services and production. On the one hand, we'll have seen some kind of considerable amount of manufacturing activities, coupled with processing and agro-processing, oil processing, or food processing. But when we hear about the SIDS, what comes into our mind basically is about the tourism, hotel sector, and also some other related service sectors. And these are what we'll say are driving or contributing to the GDP of these island states. But the good thing about the sectors is that across these sectors, whether it be it minor or major manufacturing or chemical processing or hoteling and food processing, there are some connecting things that connects all the sectors. One is raw materials, chemicals, energy and water, and then waste management. From all these subsectors, each and every of all these things are used in the production of goods and services. And so we may want to ask, what are the key challenges being faced by the sectors? Typically, as an island state, because of maybe the availability of resources and operational capacities, typically businesses across the SIDS, they, like any other region, they faced high operating and production costs, including overheads. They have high cost of energy. For those in the processing, agro-processing, high cost of chemicals, because the SID is in a very peculiar region. Fresh water is always of great concern, followed by spare parts and repairs. We also have a key material sourcing because of its location, procurement, supply chain, input material substitution, and product quality standards. These are some of the problems. And then most importantly is, should these products and services be exported from the region, they also have to meet international or national environmental and industrial regulations. So the sectors are peculiar, like we've mentioned. And within, let's take, for example, from the hotel and the tourism sector, we have water efficiency issues because of freshwater use and the scarce resources of freshwater use. We have energy because the hotels in the SID, unless they have some very good energy mix, energy efficiency or the use of energy is always an issue. And then because of the tourism, it has to be cleaned, the environments have to be cleaned, sanitized. There's always the issue of using clean agents for sanitization. And then that leads us to what kind of chemicals and what kind of clean agents are being used. Do they really function? Do they have biodiversity consideration because of the ecosystems in the SIDS? And then how do they affect workers' health? And then in the processing, you have chemical management as an issue. You have chemical spill. Those in the processing, food processing, you have loss of biodiversity. Should all these be not treated well and discharged directly into open waters? And then you have public health and safety. But in the service sector, you also have plastic waste. We have problems with ocean litter, waste management, and upcycling challenges. Now, with all this, one will then be asking the question is, how can businesses manage these issues? How can they operate sustainably? How can they achieve the environmental, social, and governance objective, that is the ESG objective? Well, we think from what we have been practicing over the years and what has become a methodology for implementation, it all starts with the concept of circular economy. We have been introduced, or we've heard about circular economy before, but this time around, we just want to see how it will go in a flow. And then we will try to see how resource efficiency and cleaner production actually fits into the inner circle, which is the production circle here. So it starts with that. So we know we have the resources. We know the circular economy is a complete circle. There is the design, recycling circle. There's the production, and then there is the consumption. And then everything goes to waste, which we don't want. But we want to reduce the number of waste, and that is where the circular economy comes in. The cleaner production, resource efficiency and cleaner production comes in as one part of the entire circle. So what is resource efficiency and cleaner production? Basically, resource efficient and cleaner production is a continuous application of integrated preventive environmental strategy to processes, products, and services to increase their efficiency, reduce risk to humans and the environment. Now, if you recall in our first slide, we looked at an array of subsectors. Some are in the processing, and some are in the product development, and some are in the services. So in everything, what the RECP or cleaner production strategies or methodology is aiming to do is increase your efficiency in how you do it. By increasing efficiency, it's like you're looking at the production, how best you can make use of little resources or input materials that you have to achieve the maximum outcome. And while you are doing that, you want to reduce the risks to workers, whether in the industries where production and processing are going on, or in hotels where people are staying, and ultimately contribute to sustaining the environment. So it's all about minimizing making use of the best material resources and minimizing environmental risk. So basically, this is all what the RACP involves. One, production efficiency. It improves productive use of natural resources. Environmental protection, minimize the impact on our nature and ecosystems. Social enhancements, support communities and reduce risks. So the basics of RSP methodology is, first, you look at whether it's an hotel, an industry, you have identified an issue. Let's say we want to take waste management or plastics or a chemical management within a processing industry. The first thing you want to do is you want to know where those effluents spills are being generated from in your entire manufacturing or production, processing cycle. And then you understand why is it being generated. And then you go on to implement the adaptations to reduce the waste and emissions. All these are processes, and I think by the time my colleague Hannes will come, he will kind of guide us on where and how these processes will fit into the RSP methodology. So this is all about the RSP solutions. The very good thing is about it starts with good housekeeping. With good housekeeping alone, whether it be it in a hotel, in a processing industry, in tourism, in service, a company, a small business can save up to between 5 and 10% from either from material waste or from product sourcing and the rest. So the key of RSP, the key to RSP success is that it's a middle and top management system where all workers from different sectors or different departments within a company or an organization come together to establish what we call the environmental management system, and then they go ahead to implement it. So the benefits for businesses within with RACP is that when you implement or properly implement RACP methodology, is that it helps businesses, whether it be it in a hotel, in processing or manufacturing, or any kind of service organization, it helps them keep compliance with current and future international and national environmental and industrial regulations. With that, it improves their productivity or improves their production capabilities and gives them a very good competitive edge and access to new markets. It reduces the overhead cost because when you do good housekeeping and you do your right sourcing, all these, they drive down the cost of production. And then ultimately it increased your productivity. So some of the, let's take an example for the hospitality sector. Let's say we want to implement an RACP methodology, knowing for the fact that the Caribbean and the Pacifics is known for is known as one of the world's leading hospitality sector in the world. And we take a room, we take an hotel. How can we implement RACP resource efficiency in a given hotel? Let's start with the guest room. If you install infrared sensors in bathroom taps, that will help the company to save a lot of water. And and that is fresh water we're talking about because of the distillation cost, water purification cost. With that alone, infrared sensors on taps will save a lot. Laundry, install a rinse water reclamation system. It will help reduce, it will help to save 25% of wash load. The lighting, if you install LED bulbs, they use up to about less than 70%, 90% of normal bulbs, and they last 25 times longer. And then if you look at all this, again, you take a step forward, let's say within the hotel cleaning, You can use low temperature cleaning products to reduce the need of hot water, which again adds to water reduction and energy, reduce energy consumption. So you are saving money on that. And then for good housekeeping and recycling, if you use clear bins, you'll be able to assess quickly what can be recycled or not. And then within the kitchen, in the kitchen of big hotels or small hotels, if you install hands-free or foot-activated taps for sinks, and give training to staff to do hand scraping of dishes before loading into dishwashers, it will reduce the amount of water, reduce the energy costs of the dishwashers. In gardening, because this is a very essential aesthetics, environmental aesthetics procedure. We know that when you do your watering either early in the morning or late in the night, you reduce 30% of water demand. And then there are other activities which you can implement within a hotel that can lead to reducing scarce resources, money, time, and energy. So with that, I just want to thank you for your time. And for more information, you can read more about our services. So over to you.
Thank you very
Alex.
much, Jesse. That was very much appreciated. And I like your last slide there. Obviously, I like the one you have right now, which explains about your company, but the one prior to that, where you described the very simple housekeeping, let's say, ideas for the hospitality sector. Again, I think that's a good example of how simple resource efficiency can actually be. We're not talking really, really complicated stuff. Of course, you can make huge technology investments, but you can also start very simply. And I think that's a really interesting message that you have here is, or like it's not a difficult thing to do. You can really start with very simple solutions. So thank you very much for that. I think it's a good way to move into the next presentation, which I will give. Now, just to quickly recap again, the idea here is obviously to give you an introduction to resource efficiency, which Jesse has just done. But we also want now to present to you the IGO Assistant, which is really a tool for SMEs to access all the information and resources they might need for their particular circumstances. Apologies. So without further ado, bear with me while I share my screen, and we will be able to get into this then straight away. So what I have here is a nice first slide, which is going to be the introduction to IGO. And the first thing you see here on the screen is tailored resource efficiency knowledge and support services for businesses. Because this is one of the big complications that a lot of companies have, regardless what sector they're in. It doesn't matter, like Jesse said, if it's in manufacturing, services, offices, or hotels. You know, great, resource efficiency, simple, but where do I start? Where do I get the information to learn more about the potential solutions? Where do I get the training? Where do I get the financing? Where do I turn to? Because it's quite a, let's say it's quite a full market out there with a lot of different information. So IGO really has the ambition to help SMEs access what they need to make the first steps on resource efficiency. Now, what I have here is not to contradict what I just said about Jesse's last slide, because yes, resource efficiency is not difficult, but it can be a little bit complicated to get started. And why do I say that? Well, one is, why should I become more resource efficient? What good is it going to do for me? Yes, sure, it's going to save money, but is it going to save me enough money? Is there really a business case for this? Is it worth the effort if I'm going to have to get training, or if I'm going to have to do all of these things? It becomes a very kind of complicated topic when you don't know where to turn to. You don't know if you're going to be rewarded for becoming more resource efficient. or anything like that. So what IGO is trying to do is really to, I suppose I have here connect the dots to bridge the gaps, but if you see it as we have a lot of challenges to overcome. One, SMEs are small entities, very often can be difficult to engage with because they mightn't, there are so many of them, they mightn't be part of a particular business association, a lot of different reasons. So one, connecting with SMEs can be quite difficult. Two, convincing SMEs that resource efficiency is a good idea is also not the easiest, because we've kind of taken 15 minutes to explain the benefits of resource efficiency, but if it's your business that is going to be impacted by this, then obviously it takes a bit of convincing to do this. And the other complication is, yes, there is a lot of information, there are a lot of supports out there for SMEs to become resource efficient, but they're not equally distributed amongst all the different regions or countries. So some countries will have great training or financing or knowledge products to help SMEs, some will not. So there's a lot of, let's say, challenges to overcome. And so what we are doing with the IGO initiative, and I should explain, we have the IGO initiative within which there are many different IGO tools. And one of the first things we do through the IGO initiative is we work to develop a business case. How can we convince companies that resource efficiency is good for their business? And we do this through supply chain initiatives. If an SME is part of a supply chain, and that doesn't matter what type of supply chain, whether it's a chain of hotels bringing in tourists, or whether it's a manufacturing company developing or producing a product for a larger client, supply chains are everywhere. And we actually work through supply chains to get the leaders of the supply chain to motivate their suppliers to become more resource efficient. Then, if a business case exists, it is a lot of work, but it can exist. We then work to help SMEs access all the different support that's out there. But like I said, because not every country has the right level of support for SMEs to become resource efficient, we also work with many different organizations to understand where the gaps are in support to SMEs and how to address those gaps by developing new support, new knowledge products, new training, etc. Now, in practice, how does the IGO initiative work? Well, the very first thing about IGO is that we bring lots of different information together in one place. And what do I mean by this? We go region by region, country by country, and see what's available there for SMEs on resource efficiency guidance, resource efficiency training, any type of good financing product, any type of technical assistance tools that could be available. If they're not available in a particular country, are they available in the language of that country, in a different country? Could they be replicated, translated, etc.? And all of this goes into a big database called the SME Support Center. Let me show you that very quickly, what I mean by this. So it is called the SME Support Center. And here in this database, we gather all the different guidance and support for SMEs under these three headings. So if you're interested in resource efficiency planning, you have this strategy area, you can go by water, energy, waste, etc. And what you get when you go into this database is you get results according to your search. So what I've done here is I've said, I'm starting out, I want to get some information on a resource efficiency strategy, and I have chosen the hospitality and tourism sector. And what I have here is I have a number of different things. In this case, it's all about guidance. So I have how to get net positive hospitality. I have some case studies. I have a general resource efficiency guide that has a lot of information for the hospitality sector. I have information about the business case for sustainable hotels, etc. And I can do that for different sectors. I can do that for energy information, water information, waste, etc. So it's a very comprehensive database that you can access in different languages to get all of the available information that would exist in your country or in any other country around there. So whilst the database is great, of course, it's of limited use. I mean, first of all, you have to get SMEs interested in resource efficiency and then interested in going into a database. So to simplify that, we have created a tool called the IGO Assistant. And this is actually nearly the core of our training today, is to talk about this. And the IGO Assistant is really our way to help SMEs make best use of all of the information and supports we bring together in this SME support center. It does two things, maybe even three, you could say. One, it enables the SME to do a very quick self-assessment to get an idea of their resource efficiency status. Do they know what it is? Are they beginners, intermediate? It then gives them simple recommendations on how to move beyond their current status. And very importantly, it gives a tailored list of guidance tools, technical assistance training that's most relevant to their status, location, size, and sector of activity. So a real kind of customized solution for them. And rather than keep talking about it here, let me actually show you that in real life, what I'm talking about. So what we have is, we have a website. It is called igosolution.org. I do believe that will appear in the chat, so you'll be able to have that link directly if you want to go looking at it yourself. And it's a very simple website. It is all focused around the IGO Assistant. I click here to start, and I get a page that asks me very simple questions about me, my company, if I'm an SME. It asks me my location, my business sector, and my company size. We're not looking for any confidential information. We're not looking to see if your email address, who you are, your name, your company name. No, we just need to know these basic details to be able to match you to specific knowledge. Now, in this case, I've chosen Barbados, manufacturing, a company size of this. And then what I do is I answer some very simple questions about my actions to date. What we are asking is, one, have they done anything in general on resource efficiency? I.e., do they have a strategy? Have they even thought about resource efficiency? And then whether or not they have done anything overall on planning resource efficiency, we also ask the company if they have carried out specific actions around energy management, around water saving, around materials efficiency, chemicals, and waste management. Now, I'm going to walk you through this very quickly, but I would like to stress, this is not a complicated self-assessment. We're not looking for crazy complicated information. We really are just asking simple questions that require a yes/no answer. And in fact, each of these sections that we go through only ask a maximum of 4 questions or a minimum of 1. And the number of questions that are asked depend on how advanced the SME might be. So for example, here on the resource efficiency strategy, the first thing we ask is, have you as a company made a commitment to improve resource efficiency? And if yes, have you created or developed a strategy around this? I.e., have you thought about it? Have you done something about it? And if I click yes, okay, great, nice to know. And because you have developed this strategy, we now want to ask you, have you done an assessment? Have you gone beyond just developing a strategy? Have you investigated if you have any specific opportunities you can undertake? Now, if I click yes, I will be asked another question. If I click no, and I'll do that here, I will go straight to the next section. And here, because I answered yes to the resource efficiency strategy, my question here is, have you implemented any kind of energy efficiency or renewable energy actions within your resource efficiency strategy? Now, if I click yes, I'll be asked more questions. If I click no, I will go straight to the next section. Now, in this case, it's very similar. It's asking me, like just previously, have I implemented or have I included any water saving or wastewater actions in my resource efficiency strategy? If I click yes in this case, I'll be asked another question. Here, it's going to ask me simply, what type of measures? Now, they're not asking you if you have water meters or wastewater recycling, etc. It's just really going to say, is a water saving or wastewater reduction measures? Let me choose one, go on to the next question. Here, it's going to ask me, okay, you have included water management within your resource efficiency strategy. Have you also done an investigation on these? Have you gone beyond including these as in your strategy? And if I click yes, I'll be asked another question. Okay, great. You have a plan, you've done an assessment, you have potentially things in action. Are you monitoring what you're doing? Are you tracking the performance of what you've implemented? If I click yes, I'll be asked up to my fourth important question, which is basically, great, you're doing really lots of wonderful work within your own facility on water saving, but are you working with people outside of your own operations? Are you working with suppliers? Are you working with your customers, etc.? Now, regardless whether I answer yes or no, I will go to the next section. So that's showing you kind of the minimum and maximum level of questioning you can get in each section. But like I said, if I click no, I've done nothing, I get into the next section. No, I've done nothing, I go to the next section, and so on. And that's how we get through this very quickly if I know very little about resource efficiency and haven't actually done an awful lot. Or it takes me a bit longer if I am more experienced and have done more actions. Now, after I do this very simple little self-assessment, what I end up with is a nice, pretty picture, which shows me where I am at as an SME across those different areas: resource efficiency strategy, energy management, etc., etc. So for here, we can say that energy management, I'm not doing anything at all. I'm a complete beginner. And what's interesting about this graph, the gray is actually the average of all of the other SMEs that have used this self-assessment. So I can see, okay, even though all of the other SMEs on average are beginners, I'm a real beginner because I've done nothing to date. But for example, on water management, I'm intermediate. I'm doing okay when everybody else, for example, is a beginner. And I can actually refine that benchmarking by comparing myself against different sectors, countries, or sizes. Now that's the nice overview to show you what you have as a general resource efficiency status. But based on that status, and based on the information you gave at the very beginning, which is your location, your sector of activity, and your size, you're now going to get very specific recommendations for each of those areas. The first thing you see is the high-level status description. But if I click on one of these, for example, resource efficiency strategy, what I see is, let me just clean this up a little bit. I see a recommendation, which is telling me, okay, you have developed a resource efficiency strategy, you have carried out an assessment, but you need to go a bit further. You don't have an action plan. So why should you have an action plan? And this recommendation will explain why an action plan is a good next step. It will also outline the key steps to take to implement that particular action plan, which is the next step from where you're at. As you can see, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on what you can do to implement an action plan. Now, this is not very detailed information. It's just to give high-level kind of insight. The real information is down here. This is the tailored list of knowledge and support services that will help this particular SME implement the kind of recommendations that are highlighted above. And what it's done, it's pulled out guidance, case studies, tools, training, financial solutions, etc., that would be most relevant to that SME based on its location, the status, etc. Now, what's important to point out here, I selected Barbados as the country. And in fact, the information that's coming up here is generic. It's quite global. It's not specifically from Barbados. And this is because there's a lack of resource efficiency, let's say guidance or tools or training, etc., in Barbados around this topic. I'm not saying that we have managed to capture everything, but it would have been one of the countries where one, mightn't have done as much research, and two, where there mightn't be as much available. Let me show you the exact same assessment for a company, for example, from South Africa that has carried out the exact same assessment as this one. And what we see here is there's different guidance, there's very different training. It's from the South African Cleaner Production Center. We have more financial solutions, and we have more technical assistance. So you can see even the case studies, for example, are different between the company that did the exact same assessment, got the same result, but is based in South Africa from the one that is based in Barbados. And this is purely because we look to see what's available in the country and match it up accordingly. Now, what this does, it obviously highlights that there's a lot more work to do to get the required training that's targeted at Barbados SMEs. So that's the quick introduction to the IGO Assistant. I hope that in general you found it of interest. What I would like to do is, sorry, I have to go into my screen, is quickly go back to the presentation, because the IGO Assistant is a tool that is really targeted at awareness building. Where am I at in resource efficiency? Where can I turn to get the most relevant information and support for me as an SME? What we have coming up is another tool called the Implementation Manager tool. Now, this is in development this year and will be a much more advanced tool than the IGO Assistant, but it's meant for SMEs that are ready to implement more technical solutions, that are ready to implement, whether it's a manufacturing company that's going to implement a whole new process line and wants to do it with resource efficiency in mind, or a hotel, etc. So it's designed for a company or an SME ready to implement action. And what it does is it will carry out a feasibility study based on any audit data that is provided by an external expert for that particular SME. As they implement their actions, it will help them track performance. And of course, we'll give them good information that they can report to a client to show how well they're doing, maybe to get certification, etc. So again, this is a tool that will be developed this year, also quite interesting, but really a next step. The IGO Assistant is very much the first step for the SMEs to get them on that particular resource efficiency journey, to start the whole process. Now, that is our kind of selection of tool. What I would like to do now is very quickly move on to our IGO network. This was also a point in the agenda for today. And the thing about these tools that you see here is they're really good tools designed for SMEs to be used by SMEs. But of course, the challenge is, how do we get them to the SMEs? We in the Green Industry Platform are not located in every country. We don't have direct access to SMEs. So what we have is, at the heart of the IGO initiative is the IGO network. And the IGO network is really our way of engaging with the SMEs. We always aim to work through local intermediaries to help them help the SMEs through the IGO tool. Bear with me, and I made a mistake on this particular click. I have to click again. I'm going to go through this very quick. Apologies. So who is the IGO network for? Well, it's anybody who is interested in supporting SMEs become more resource efficient. It doesn't mean they have to be working on resource efficiency, but that they have engagement with SMEs and would like to even help them become more resource efficient. So yes, it can be government agencies, development organizations like the UN, but also very importantly, like many of you here today, the business associations. It does also include financial institutions because financing of resource efficiency actions is very important. And what we call supply chain clients, who are the customers of the different SMEs. And we call these the SME supporting organizations. And that's who the IGO network is for. And ultimately, the objective of the network is connecting and empowering these different types of organizations. How can we help them help their SMEs? Now, what are our objectives with the IGO network? Well, one, the IGO network also helps us collect all of the different information that goes into our SME support center, and then that is matched with SMEs through the IGO assistant. And of course, it doesn't just bring it together, but it also helps promote all of this information. Now, that's the starting point, but obviously this network of all of these different supporting organizations is very important to those organizations themselves because they have an opportunity to exchange between each other. They have an opportunity to learn from each other. How have they helped SMEs on resource efficiency? How could we copy what you've done, etc.? And of course, it's helping them collaborate with each other. There's great opportunities to collaborate within countries, across countries, through the IGO network. And you could say quite importantly, ultimately, we also want to help these different supporting organizations get access to funding so they can also help develop new supports for SMEs. We're not going to develop new training or new technical assistance for SMEs in Barbados. That should be a local organization that is best placed to do that. And through the IGO network, we'd like to identify those, help them exchange with other organizations, but also access funding. And exactly the last point here is if they have the funding, they can also fill these gaps on support and knowledge. Now, one thing I won't go into today, but is worth noting is we facilitate this network also through the Green Forum, which is a part of the Green Industry Platform Mothership, which is called the Green Growth Knowledge Partnership. And it's really, think of LinkedIn, but really pretty much better than LinkedIn. It enables communities of practice where different organizations can easily exchange and collaborate. Worth checking it out. We will definitely share more information with you on this as well after the workshop. Now, what's worth mentioning as well is the IGO network is global, regional, and local. That means it's within a specific country, we support a network of organizations, but those organizations not only exchange with each other, but have access to expertise of organizations on a regional and global level as well. And this is, we found, nearly the most interesting part of the network to date is people really want to learn what others are doing outside of their country in different regions. And again, languages don't seem to be a big barrier to the network because it's really simple information that has been exchanged, simple collaboration. When you have a topic like resource efficiency, it's really a great way to be able to exchange and learn from others that have carried out successful actions with their SMEs. Ultimately, the idea of the network also is that it's not just let's help the different organizations exchange. Everybody needs to have a key role in winning from the network. And what do I mean by that? Well, the supporting organizations that I just mentioned, obviously helping them to both apply, but also improve their existing supports. Donors, those are entities that, whether they're governments or development banks or climate funds, it doesn't matter. They're always wondering where they should direct their funds to achieve the biggest impact, but also to address specific needs. Through the IGO network, we're able to give donors really good information on how to direct their funds. Business associations, by being part of the network, and in fact, business associations are probably the core of the IGO network because they have the best access to SMEs. And by being part of the IGO network, business associations, they're really well able to prepare SMEs for all the different, let's say, business challenges that they're facing, whether it's due to climate change, whether it's due to just economic difficulties in the country. Obviously, that's what business associations are there for, to help SMEs overcome all of these. And through the IGO network, they have a good opportunity. The supply chain leaders, or the SME clients, so to speak, they obviously want to be able to motivate their SMEs, suppliers, to become more resource efficient. And in a way, by being part of the network, that helps them a lot understand how they can best motivate and give the business case to their SMEs. And of course, the financial institutions, the money people who provide loans and other financial solutions to SMEs, they are at loss when it comes to resource efficiency in terms of understanding it, how they should assess resource efficiency projects. And by being part of the IGO network, that helps them as well. So ultimately, at the end of this rather lengthy presentation, I think probably the key thing to say is that IGO really connects the dots. And leaving you with that simple slide, we're going to jump now into the Q&A, but I think it's important to emphasize a few things about IGO. One, we do not provide solutions directly ourselves. We match SMEs to existing solutions. We help organizations exchange between each other. We're facilitators, we're coordinators. And the reason we see that as very important is there's a lot of amazing things out there to help SMEs become more resource efficient. A lot of organizations doing a lot of great work, but it's done very individually. It's done in a siloed way. And by bringing it all together in a more coordinated approach, we can really make better use of what already exists. But at the same time, we can also see more specifically what's missing and how to address that. Now, the other thing to mention is IGO is quite new. It was only launched last year. So we're still at the early stages. We're still learning a lot about how best to adapt IGO to both the supporting organizations as well as the SMEs. So really, we're very keen at all stages to get a lot of feedback on our work. So with that, I would like to move into our Q&A session, and with you knowing that your feedback is greatly appreciated, at the same time, we'd love to get your questions as well. Now, I gather there's been a lot going on in the chat, and I can see it here, but maybe before I jump into the chat to see the particular questions, what I recommend is simply, if you would like to jump in at this stage, raise your hand and we can let you speak and ask your question directly. Would anybody like to be the first to raise their hand? So bear with me, because yes, the important thing that was just said here in the chat, everybody can now unmute themselves. I didn't realize that people were muted there the whole time. So please do check in if you would like to ask a question. And while I'm waiting for the hands to raise, I'm actually flicking through the chat to see what particular questions are here as well. Okay, so while I don't see any particular hand being raised straight away, I have come across the first question here, which is quite important. It's from Patricia, who asked, is there a cost involved to access these services? And by this, I mean IGO. No, IGO is completely free to use. And by that, I mean the IGO Assistant in particular. The SME Support Center is an open database of information that anybody can access, and the IGO Assistant can be used by anyone free of charge. And importantly, the IGO Assistant directs, insofar as possible, to free information, free training or subsidized training, and technical support. If it directs to anything that is paid, it is only through a non-profit organization. Very often training has a cost to it, but we will only direct SMEs to training that is offered by a non-profit, so that it's not a complicated situation for the SME. Now, Maybe what I can do is also mention in terms, I think this is perhaps a good point to bring into this as well, when it comes to cost, because a lot of people will say, is resource efficiency an expensive thing to implement for an SME? Again, whether I'm a manufacturing company or whether I'm a hotel, how much is it going to cost me to implement resource efficiency actions? And in anticipation of that type of question, what I'd like to do is maybe hand over to Jesse, because Jesse, I think if you could explain the simple, let's say, no-cost solutions, what they can bring, and how a company maybe step by step can slowly go towards more investment type actions, but to reassure people that resource efficiency doesn't have to be expensive to implement.
All right, thank you very much, Hannes. Yes, like you mentioned, resource efficiency and cleaner production methodologies are quite simple to implement. You start from the small steps. You know, there is a saying that goes that if you want to eat how can you eat an elephant? You start slowly, one shop after another. And that is all about resource efficiency. So let's take, for example, I'm using a very practical sector, which is common in the region, and that is the hotel sector. We all know that in the small island countries, there is a whole lot of costs in water desalination, fresh water availability. And so for that, hotels, they pay more to get fresh water for their guests and also for their tourism or service industry. But at the same time, they also want to make profit. So what you can do as an hoteler is look at how best you can reduce your water usage using very, very simple methodologies. I personally have been to some hotels that in regions or islands where they have water issues, freshwater and freshwater issues. They started up with coming up with simple signs. When you are brushing your mouth in the morning, please kindly turn off the tap so that you can, for each second you turn up for each 5 seconds you turn off the tap, you are saving half a liter of water. So if you do that over a period of time, you find out that the hotel is saving more on those on the cost of water and also the energy involved in it. Let's say you are in the fruit processing or minor manufacturing, and you want to start implementing resource efficiency and cleaner production methodologies. Before now, you hardly break even in your production, either through loss of materials. What you may want to do is start off from the basics. How do you source your materials from? Where do you source your materials? How often do you make your production? Your production staggered? Are your production in line with market realities and demands? By the time you do that, you find that you might be cutting down on either overheads, wear and tear of your parts, and or reserving some resources which might, the inflation might catch on. Again, if you look into your production cycle, you'll find that there are some fans, conveyor belts, or water sprinklers that are just running the entire time in your production. With a simple resource efficiency and cleaner production step, you can decide to kind of break the production cycle into 2 parts, or plan it in a way that energy efficient motors and sensors are used on conveyor belts so that you don't have to be running, your companies don't have to be running conveyor belts all the time, which again affects your overhead and cost on electricity and also on spare parts, on wear and tear. The other thing you can also do is good housekeeping. Good housekeeping is basically putting the right things at the right places. It helps you to reduce the complexities in workspaces. It helps your workers and the work environment become safer and more organized, reduces accidents within the workspaces, and at the same time contributes to production capitalization. That is, you can quickly get from point A to B in your production cycle. So good housekeeping will also help you to know how your waste at the end of your production cycle are segregated, what needs to be won back, that is, we call them product winning. Let's say you are in the metal and scrap processing or fabrication. With good housekeeping, you will be able to know which part of the metal or reusable metal that should not be discarded or thrown away. Even though you are in the textile and clothing and apparel sector, you will be able to know which part of the textile that can be used for other as input materials for other products. So there we can go on and on. The boundary, you can be enlarging the boundary as you go on. The good thing about it is that you start small and then you increase. You take it step by step. And by doing so, you will be identifying mini projects. We call them projects within either in your hotel or in your manufacturing company where you can be improving on. That is why it is called a continuous preventive or improvement process. It's not just once and for all, rather you increase on your gains, and that leads to more reduction in costs, in that production cost, overhead cost, or material cost. I think that is how it is, but just start little by little.
Thank you very much, Jesse. I think that was actually a very good add-on to this. And while you were chatting there and explaining some very simple housekeeping measures, I actually was having a quick chat with two people in the chat box who are leading some Chamber of Commerce. If I may, I apologies if I get the pronunciation of the name wrong, but Bui Man Tong, you had mentioned that power is a big issue and having access to power is a big issue for SMEs. And for you, a simple question was, could we provide assistance such as grants for the purchase of solar systems to address this issue? Now, one thing to ask is maybe if you'd like to maybe speak, you could first of all explain a little bit about your Chamber of Commerce and the types of SMEs you work with. Then we can maybe address your question both in the complication of grants, but also other ways for SMEs to save energy. So would you like to speak for a minute and explain a little bit more about your chamber and the SME members that are part of it?
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. This is Bui Man Tong, project manager from the Kiribati Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Yes, we have members of about 250 at the moment. According to the Ministry of Commerce registration, there's about more than 1,000 registered businesses in the main island, Tarawa, but only 250 are registered with the chamber. Yeah, so in relation to this topic, I guess the SMEs in Kiribati, the strong sector is the retail business. We have about 180 members that are into the retail business. We've also have wholesale businesses that's providing this solar system and other green products. But yes, speaking of the main issue here in Tarawa is the power. So we constantly have power shortages. Recently, early this year, due to the increase in consumption of power, and there's limited or not enough capacity of the powerhouse to produce the required power. So at the moment we are on limited, I would say, for the next 6 months, we usually have power outage 6 or 8 hours a day. And most of our SMEs are really affected because of this problem. A lot of them are complaining because of the appliances that they use, are being, they can't use the freezers and other appliances that they require for their daily operations are off, or they can't be using them because there's no power. So a lot of interest is moving towards the use of solar system. But again, another problem is the cost of these systems are very high. I recently purchased solar system that's produce 1,000 watts, and that's cost around nearly 4,000 Australian. It's really high. So yes, I'm wondering if there's support from IGO in this regards to help our SMEs, especially with the issue with the power. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think what you've just spoken about is probably I would say a common problem in many SIDS regions or countries. The reason, I suppose, there's two ways to approach this. One is, you had mentioned that there is not enough power being produced for the requirements. One of the things we would say is you should save before you change. The really first big step is to actually, how can I save energy consumption? How can I reduce my energy consumption while still achieving the same? And this is a very important step because it means two things. One, it means that the same power source for all the SMEs can stay the same and provide them with more consistent energy because less is being consumed. But also, if you then want to get solar panels, because you've managed to use less to be more efficient with your energy use, you don't need to invest in as many solar panels to actually power your business. So there's two good reasons for actually saving energy, becoming more energy efficient as a first step. It means the existing power source will be able to deal more effectively with the needs of the SMEs, and then those that make the switch to solar panels won't have to invest in as many. Now, the other question is, does IGO provide grants? The unfortunate simple answer is no, because we don't provide direct assistance, we match to existing. However, that being said, one of the benefits of IGO is the way we try to, one, understand what are the specific needs in a given country, and then go looking for who could fulfill those needs. Now, you said ideally the situation is complicated to be able to invest in solar panels. In other countries, development banks have been providing financing solutions for energy efficiency technology or renewable energy technology like solar panels. We would then be able to go and see who is doing that in other countries and could it be replicated, for example, in your country or in neighboring countries as well. That is something IGO can do, but we can't give direct grants. But hopefully that can be two important things to maybe take back with you. One is saving energy is a really important first step, and there's a lot we can do on that through IGO. And then two, really understanding in more detail your needs. This can be done through the island program, actually, in fact, more directly, and then going and seeing, is there any entity organization that can step in on financing solutions, grants or financing? This would be an interesting one, because the important thing here is thinking that the Jeff Islands program is about waste management and chemicals. Without energy, we cannot deal with waste and chemicals. Without energy, we cannot treat water effectively. Without energy, we can't do many different things. So energy is obviously a very important first step to managing waste and chemicals as well. So very, very interesting insights. And thank you very much for that. And I think everybody's been busy taking note of this one, and there'll definitely be a follow-up. We're going to be chatting with you about this, I think, as well, because it's, I think, a big problem across many different island states. Now, I had another person in the chat from a Chamber of Commerce. This was Sophia Fowler, I think it was, also from a Chamber of Commerce. Sophia, I don't know if you want to jump in as well and maybe explain about your Chamber of Commerce and your members like this, and maybe kind of a little bit in a similar fashion, giving us a picture of what it's like in your country. I don't think Sophia is able to connect, if she's still there. While I wait to see if Sophia wants to speak or not, I'll just quickly mention one thing that she had said in the chat to me, is the fact that they have to import a lot of resources. I think it was the Marshall Islands Sophia was from, if I can remember correctly. And this is a big problem because, one, they have to import a lot of resources. So being more efficient with resources is going to reduce the amount they need to import. And rainwater, because they can have a situation where rain doesn't come for up to 2 weeks or more, obviously scarcity of water is an issue. So being able to save water, to not have to have as great a need, will obviously benefit there. Now, this, I think, again, is a similar problem in all of the island states, is the fact that so much has to be imported and scarcity of rainwater. What I think, going back to a point that Jesse made about the hospitality sector, is certain sectors like the hospitality sector might end up using a lot of water. And there are many, many different measures that can be implemented that reuse water as well as reduce water consumption. So rather than try to figure out where to get more water from, how can we actually reduce our consumption while still satisfying the needs of our clients, but also reuse it wherever possible? Simple things. I think was a point that Jesse had made there about laundry, like washing machines. Being able to reuse your rinse water for a first wash cycle is a simple thing that can be done with commercial machines. And again, it reduces your water consumption by 25–30%, which in a hotel or any kind of large facility dealing with all of these laundry systems can make a big deal. What that does is it reduces the water consumption of a business, leaving more water for the other citizens as well. And I think that's where resource efficiency and water scarcity can really work hand in hand together. And obviously, this reuse perspective, whether it's, for example, again, thinking about the hospitality and single-use toiletries, if they all have to be imported, it's expensive. If I don't have to import lots of small bottles, but just large quantities of liquid that can then be put into reusable bottles, that's less that I have to import. And coincidentally, it also creates less waste. So I think these are important things that could address many of these import problems as well as the water scarcity issues. I'm just jumping into the chat again because it seems to be the busy place to be. And I see that Eunice has actually jumped into the conversation and was also representing the Marshall Islands Chamber of Commerce. And Eunice, I see that you had, again, a comment about the solar panels, both in terms of quality, maintenance issues, etc. Would you like to jump in on and tell us a little bit more directly, both about your Chamber of Commerce and the issues that your members have? I don't know, Eunice, if you can hear me and if you're able to speak. As I see your microphone is ready to go. So maybe there's an issue with your microphone. I'll let you interrupt me at any stage if you get access to your microphone. In the meantime, I'm actually looking here, and I also see that in relation to, yes, to the solar energy is also the issue of solar batteries. So there seems to be quite a lot of issues about renewable energy, both in the quality of the products being supplied, actually maintaining them correctly, and then of course, as you said, the disposal of the batteries. This is all very important stuff. And what I would say, what's important here is, and I think this is perhaps also straight away what you can already get through the IGO Assistant and the SME Support Center, because we do have guides on solar panels in our database. And what these guides do is they actually describe how to source a high quality solar panel. What do you need to look for? What are the criteria you need to take into account to make sure that you're getting a high quality solar panel? It's not just about the brand. It's also about the type of solar panel, its efficiency level, what type of material it's made out of, what are the fittings. For example, if it's near the coast, it has to have stainless steel fittings and not just what we painted fittings, etc. And we actually do have information about solar panels in our database that are quite easy to find. That would be an interesting place to start. In terms of maintenance, this is also very important. Again, little things like making sure the fittings are corrosion resistant because we are close to the coast. And simple things like, I'm actually not the expert on solar panels, but in terms of maintenance, it's also how to keep them clean, how to make sure that they're not covered in sand or dust, to ensure that the full power of the sun is falling on them at all times, etc. So in fact, it's more understanding the technology, the things to look for when you procure them, and simple, again, housekeeping and maintenance to make sure that they function well. Disposal of the batteries, yes, this is very important. And I think this is an interesting topic for islands to take away with them as well, because this is a very practical issue. Now, again, you have disposal of batteries, but you also have the recycling of batteries. What's interesting about lithium-ion batteries that are used for solar panels is they can be actually, let's say, recycled on site and put back into use. Not at 100% efficiency, but they can be, let's say, reinvigorated. So I think there's some interesting topics we can take already from this, and thank you very much for bringing it up. One thing I would say is, after this, we will definitely pass on what information we have around solar panel and also disposal of batteries. But I think we could even, and I'll be talking about this in the next steps, have a very specific conversation around these kind of key technologies that are of concern to you. We have been very generic in talking about resource efficiency and how you can learn about it, how it can apply, but ultimately the stage we want to get to is to be able to provide you with direct information about specific sectorial type activities, but also technology solutions. So we're taking note, and you'll be hearing about this as well. If I may, sorry, because I have to pause every time to check back into the chat to make sure that I'm capturing everybody's comments here. What I would do, rather than having to go back and forth in the chat, I found this quite interesting to hear from Biwiman about their members. If any other business association here today would like to just give a quick introduction to their chamber and the typical challenges that their SMEs members face, that would be really useful to us. Because again, we're learning from this workshop as well as explaining to you about resource efficiency. So please, it would be great if anybody representing a chamber would like to quickly make an introduction and explain the challenges. So we're looking for those hands to be raised. let's put it this way, the first person to put up their hand gets the first reaction from us and the first piece of information sent out after this workshop.
Just to add to the previous issue that I mentioned from the Kiribati Chamber of Commerce and Industry,
Yes.
Another main issue that our SME face is, the traditional way of doing business where they manually record, the bookkeeping is done on paper. What we are trying to, put forward to our SMEs is to move towards digital. So we understand there's a lot of programs at the moment that are, giving out funding assistance towards digital. So to match that, we require our SMEs to, start moving into this direction so that we'll be able to capture the assistance from the donors that they offer to our SMEs here in Kiribati. That I think that's one main one too that we see most of our SMEs say they lack that, and I think they rather operate the business on cash basis. There's no record, so we've encouraging them to have a bank account so that they can have a report on the transactions. Sometimes it's really important for them because at the end of the year they were surprised. Oh my gosh, I didn't know I have this turnover of sales. But that's the thing, because they're on cash basis, so there's no proper bookkeeping and there's no proper record on hand. Yes, that's one thing too that SMEs are facing at the moment. Beside that, another issue would be water as well. For Kiribati, we are in drought, and the water is not drinkable in most of the areas here in Tarawa. I guess because the majority, about 70% of the population, are in Tarawa, the main island. So water is one of another major issue here in. But I'd like to thank you very much for your comments about the understanding that we should have in relation to how to conserve our energy. If we have that better idea of how to conserve that, maybe that would really help the powerhouse as well. Like I said, at the moment, we are on limited power supply because there's not enough power being produced. And we've got assistance from the Chinese embassy here. I think they bought another generator for this problem, but I don't think that the generator will be operational for the next few months. But yes, it's really good to have that that understanding of how to to conserve our energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I really like your comment about let's say, the digital challenge as well. And one thing that I would say, the user story is, how do you convince SMEs to go digital? Or like, what are the benefits of it as well? And purely speaking about resource efficiency and the potential cost savings that can be achieved about it, going digital, as in simply knowing what I spend on electricity, what I spend on waste collection, what I spend on X, Y, and Z in terms of materials, etc., and comparing that against my turnover overall, having this very simple digital overview will also help them see where they can save money. And I think one thing to mention about resource efficiency, it is a lot about saving money. If I can reduce my cost, it doesn't matter where it is, what service or production or whatever it is I'm involved in, Resource efficiency is about saving not just resources, but about cost. But you have to be a bit more precise to actually figure out where you can save those costs. It's not just, oh, I reckon I could do this. You kind of have to measure. Until you measure, you don't know what you can save. And that might be a starting point for digital as well, as in, do you want to save costs? Do you want to have more profits out of your turnover? Well, if you want to save costs, you need to measure. Measure is digital. And that can be a starting point as well for to kind of convince them of the digital approach. Water, I think, is a huge issue for everybody. And what this does is it brings me very nicely into the next steps, because we want to offer you two immediate next steps. One is we would be interested to provide this kind of training, maybe more adapted to your particular members, where for a particular Chamber of Commerce, we say, would you like to invite your members, your SMEs, to take part in this kind of online training around resource efficiency, around the IGO assistant, to see how useful it could be to them. And why I say that's interesting, that could be interesting to you, to your members, but for us, it's also interesting because we get information that will help us bring better information, better potential connections to funders, donors, but also maybe banks who can bring the solutions. So if you're interested, we can provide these type of training courses for individual chambers of commerce and your members. Now, the other thing we would like to offer, and I think this comes really, I can see water and renewable energy being two key topics. We'd also like to offer everybody here, if they're interested, an Ask the Expert session. And what we mean by that is, let's take, for example, solar energy, solar panels. Would you like to know the nitty-gritty inside aspect of solar panels, how to buy them, what are the good brands, how to maintain them? Would you like to talk to an expert on this? And what we can do is we can supply the expert, have a session here where all your SMEs can ask all the questions they want from that expert. And to determine if this is of interest to you, Cohen is going to pop up a little thing on the screen where we invite you to demonstrate, to let us know if you think this Ask the Expert ID event would be of interest to you and your members. And again, using solar panels as an example. So you can click yes, no, maybe, and depending on all the yeses and the maybes, we would definitely be reaching out to you to see what kind of topic we could start with. So please do feel free to click away. Yes, keep clicking on that to let us know, because we really are keen to see if the interest is there. And we will have this session of Ask the Expert if enough of you demonstrate your interest. And I see, yes, there's a lot of yeses, only one maybe. I think it's off to a good start. And we didn't think to have a list of potential topics to address, but I'm taking away, and I think everybody here is taking away, renewable energy, in particular solar. But I have to say there are other renewable energy sources that could be very interesting to you as well. For example, heat pumps produce cooling and heating. For example, there was refrigeration was mentioned there. Imagine being able to run your refrigeration on a quarter of the electricity that you normally would use. And this is what you can do through heat pump technology, for example. And that's why I think we should talk in general about renewable or energy efficient equipment that could reduce the need for energy, but also change the source of energy. And I think that could be an interesting one, as well as water. I think water will definitely be a topic of simple measures by sector. So I see there's a general interest. Nobody has said no. So I would say we're going to take away with us that is one of our key next tasks, to have these Ask the Expert event. And definitely a huge thanks to all of you that made these points, because we also have learned what topics we should focus on. So what I will do is end my piece there, but hand over to Melanie, who I'm sure would like to add a few last words from Islands about this very, very interesting first IGO for Islands training workshop, of which I think there's going to be a lot more happening in the near future. Melanie, over to you.
Thanks, Hannes. And Thanks, Hannes and Jesse, for great presentations. And thanks to everyone for sticking around. I think we started with 41 participants and we've still got about that now. So I think it's been very interesting to learn about resource efficiency. And from the island side, a huge and really profound thanks to those that shared their experiences. We're constantly learning and we're here to serve you. And we really learn when we hear your firsthand experiences about rolling blackouts in Kiribati, the refrigeration issues, the solar issues. And as Hannah said, this has given us great inspiration for focusing our session, our Ask the Expert session we're thinking of. So certainly on the issues around solar, lithium-ion batteries, water, and other renewable technologies as well. We can certainly provide those, and we're really looking forward to doing that. And I guess I know that you don't know us that well yet, but we are a friendly bunch. So please do just in future sessions, when we say jump in, please do just jump in, because they're so much richer when we speak to each other. So we're not here just to continually talk. We really want to hear from you, and we can tailor what we provide much better when we do. So thanks again to Hannes and Jesse and Cohen for providing support, and thanks to everyone who participated today. We had people from right across the Pacific, from Suriname, from right across the Caribbean. So it's been really great. And we very much look forward to the next session with you all. As Cohen mentioned in the chat, we will make the recording available. I know some of you had some rolling blackouts during the session, and we'll make sure that we provide the session, the recording for you to watch later. So with that, thank you everyone, and good night from Geneva. It's midnight here. And we look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.